One of the best players on the Houston Texans became one of the richest players on the Houston Texans in the offseason. Today, he had a birthday. Let's talk about Derek Stingley, one of the core pieces, the first round pick that Nick Caserio made in the process over results era. A man who was selected not for Lovie Smith's system, but for the future, and it's definitely paid off. And there's just been it's been an interesting ride in regards to Derek Stingley. What is Derek Stingley's new ceiling? And looking back at the pick, I don't know if you can call it Casario's best first round pick. I mean, obviously CJ and Will Anderson come into the conversation, but I will say that Derek Stingley is better at what he does at the moment than anyone else on the team when it comes to measuring them against their peers.
For sure. He's the only player on the team that Nick Caserio has brought in that's an all-pro as a member of the Houston Texans. So he's very good. And it's strange because even if you thought he was going to be good, like he had one of the best individual cornerback seasons that a player's ever had in college football history. And then he basically hardly played for 2 seasons. And then he got to the NFL and he was hurt and dinged up and it didn't look super impressive. The guy that went after him was obviously really good. And now he's played 30 straight games and he's an all-pro. He's in the top 5 list of everybody that does cornerbacks. A lot of the advanced metrics people say only Patrick Surtain's better than him. And you can certainly not going to find many people that think he's bad at his job. And he's very good. He's the best player at his position on the Texans, like as far as like where they rank. I just don't know what's left for Derek Stingley. Like what more can we see? Is it just, hey, do exactly what you've been doing for the past 30 or so games? Because when he came back from that injury in 2023, basically from the moment he came back, he was one of the best cornerbacks in football.
Yeah, I don't really, it's kind of interesting because a lot of times whenever you sign someone, you're like, especially at the age that Stingley was, it's like, okay. And I actually asked him the question and it was just like how can you get better? Like, and I wasn't trying to be sarcastic or anything, but like if they get what they've gotten from Derek Stingley the last 30 games for the next couple of years, then that's really all there is. I don't know what the next level looks like beyond what Derek Stingley has done. Maybe the surroundings around him did a little better. Maybe there's key moments that we'll be able to point to maybe in the postseason where he has like signature plays, although it does seem like some of the over-the-shoulder interceptions have kind of stick out. But I don't think there's like a massive next step that Derek Stingley needs to take.
There's really only 2 things that we haven't seen from Derek Stingley that we could see that would be even better than what we've seen from him already. One is Defensive Player of the Year. Patrick Surtain just won it. I mean, that's something that I wouldn't have told you. I wouldn't have told you that cornerback is really a position that can win that, but Patrick Surtain just won it in a pretty crowded field, might I add. It's like that'd be one thing, and that's sort of a continuation of what he does. Maybe it goes to a little bit higher level. The only other thing I would say is he just follows the best wide receiver and locks him down no matter what the game situation or the way DeMeco Ryans wants to play defense. That's really the only thing that he doesn't consistently every game do. Obviously he can. We've seen him do it a time or two. But that'd be the only thing left is if he started to do that and he did that basically every game and I guess and then does it really well. I guess that'd be the last thing to really kind of see what Derek Stingley brings to the table.
It does feel like I know that he's respected, but it does feel like there is a little bit of, I don't want to call him underrated, but if you were to bet on Derek Stingley winning Defensive Player of the Year, you're getting it at 55-1 right now.
Ooh.
So it's a 55-1 bet. You put down $10, you win $550 for Derek Stingley to be Defensive Player of the Year. Don't ask me why I know that, but that's the number. 55-1 is the number.
Right.
I do think there's a possibility, and I've kind of broken this down a little bit, that he could kind of get like some Darrelle Revis hype, which I think kind of elevates. Like, I don't know if the defense around them gets really good, and let's say it's regarded as one of the best defenses in the league, then whenever they're on primetime or something like that, maybe the camera's like following around Derek Stingley and talking about how great he is, and maybe there's an interception. And I do think there's a chance that he could end up being kind of the face of the defense. If this defense is one of the best defenses, then perhaps that can happen like it did with Seattle's entire secondary, when really the real star was Earl Thomas was up there, but Richard Sherman was the one that got a lot of the love. I could see that happening with Derek Stingley, but I don't necessarily think he has to play any better than he has lately. I think the stuff around him needs to get better. I think they need to get better in the trenches. I think they need to sack the quarterback more consistently. I think the safety play has to elevate, but I don't necessarily think that there's like some sort of like next level. He said something like, yeah, well, you can always get better. And I'm just like, okay. I mean, I guess,
yeah, I mean, I don't want this to. Like, I will just happily take whatever Derek Stingley did in 2024 for 5 more years, like the length of the contract. Like, I'd be happy to just have that be the case for the next 5 years that he's under contract. Is just, yeah, he's exactly 2024 Derek Stingley, and you'd be absolutely fine with that because he was an excellent player last year.
Yeah, and I don't think the contract's gonna change him.
No.
He's kind of the type of guy who, I mean, he just wants to play football. That's really all there is. I did find it kind of interesting that the biggest knock on him coming into the league and really early on, it was just completely wiped away with the way they did negotiate the contract. Maybe you could say the years are a little bit shorter, but that's really the only thing Stingley to look out for.
Yeah, the worry was injury because he was injured for the 2 years of college after that incredible season. And, I think when we talk about injury in that first year, he probably could have played. I think you say this all the time. Like they shut him down.
They shut him and Pierce down, yeah.
Yeah, they knew the season wasn't going anywhere. Then they were trying to lock in on
one or two,
on the number 1 pick
or two.
And so they shut a bunch of guys down, including those two. And so the injury popping back up in 2023, that wasn't great. He missed a long stretch of time. They made it work without him. And then when he came back, he was, he hit the ground running. He was awesome. And he's played 30 games straight since, including the 4 playoff games. So
and I asked him if that was luck, and he said, I mean, what do you mean luck? And I was like, no, like it's just kind of the way that things bounce sometimes. Like I don't think he had like any issues with his body or anything like that. It's just sometimes stuff happens.
I asked him one time, like, did you change anything from a workout perspective to not risk an injury or change? And he's like, no, sometimes bad stuff happens. It's like, okay, sure. Sometimes you hurt your hamstring in the last play of practice and you miss 7 weeks. That happens, I guess.
Sometimes it be like that. Yeah. On the chat, super chat.
Swarm.
Shout out to Austin Jack, HDAV. Logan Taylor says PFF has Sting and Locksmith ranked number 1 CB duo. That's not surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who's in the conversation. Like obviously the great cornerback with whoever their other guy is usually, it just so happens Stingley was awesome last year. Most people's eyes only Pat Surtain played better than him. And then Kamari Lassiter was one of the best rookie cornerbacks last year.
Yes. Correct.
Patrick. Yeah, PFF's pretty good at telling us what a lot of us already know.
It's obvious they got it right. So the question was this: who was the last team that paid a cornerback to win big? It was actually someone who represented Derek Stingley in his contract negotiation. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it would have been Jalen Ramsey with the Rams. They traded for him. Then they made him the highest paid corner in the league. And then they ended up winning the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. Richard Sherman became the highest paid corner in the league. It was actually after Seattle had already won the Super Bowl. They still played at a good level, but that was then. And then there's a few other examples. A lot of times it kind of goes south when a corner gets paid. But the Ramsey example, Rams all in, short term, missing piece, boom, Super Bowl.
Yeah, so that would be probably the only example, because I was looking through recent Super Bowl champions and even just kind of thinking about teams that they played, who didn't win. Like the Buccaneers had some impressive DBs, but those guys got paid after the Super Bowl. Mahomes and company never had some giant investment at cornerback, and that's really what the question is long term. This isn't really a 2025 question as much as it's like a long-term look at how everything works. Can you win and be successful when you have one of the highest paid cornerbacks in all of football, in addition to all the other things that you're going to need to pay for? And the Texans are going to kind of put that to the test here in the next few years.
Yeah, it does always, it kind of feels like, at least in my life, it's kind of like the missing piece type of thing where you do it, where you need a cornerback, you pay heavy for a cornerback, and then it figures out that the example I use is Deion Sanders signed his 1-year deal in 94, went to San Francisco. I think he was a top 3 highest paid corner. And then he signed with Dallas, and Dallas won their 3rd Super Bowl with him. So it's interesting when it comes to paying corners. They're expensive. You want to have a young guy behind him. That is Kamari Lassiter. How long does this go? I think the worry for Stingley, though, is just health. That's it. It doesn't go away. It's not eliminated. Nick Caserio might have eliminated it when it came to negotiation, but it doesn't go away.
It's pretty stellar when you talk about a player and the only concern you have with their game is something that is just health. It's not like, oh, tackling or this or that. Like there's, I'm excited to watch Jaden Higgins. I have some concerns about his on the field game. Like, the only thing I have concern about with Derek Stingley is being on the field. And right now, 30 games straight at the cornerback spot since he returned from that injury in 2023. So he's on his way to putting the injury stuff behind him. And the further he gets away from that, the less that'll be a concern. And when you're a great player, when you're one of the best, that's typically the only concern for you. What's the only concern the Browns have for Myles Garrett? Health. TJ Watt for the Steelers, health. Pat Surtain for the Broncos, health. Like, there's not really a lot of things about his game that he has to round out.
Yep. That's all it is. And that can be a big thing. That can be the most important thing when it comes to Derek Stingley. You asked this question when we were talking. Is he the first big deal to not get a second deal? We're getting way ahead of ourselves here. But we do acknowledge that you have to make pretty tough decisions when it comes to finances, especially when you're paying Will Anderson and CJ Stroud. So is this going to be the tough decision as we kind of play the chess that is required to play if we look ahead, as far as you're looking ahead?
It feels to me like it's between him and Nico, and who's the first big deal to not get a second deal. And I would tell you that I feel like Stingley could be the one that, again, this is 4 years away from now, basically. I think Stingley would be that one. Unless the 2 Iowa State kids are just awesome and then you feel comfortable about moving on from Nico. But it feels like wide receivers, you like to keep those guys in the building, keep them paid. And I do feel like Nico's game's going to age pretty well. Stingley's game is going to age pretty well as also. I do wonder if he's the one that's not getting.
You think Nico's game's going to age well?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, with all the injuries.
Do you think it's not?
I mean, with the injuries, the explosiveness, no. I mean, I think it could, but I mean, the way that he plays, the physical style, the fact that we've only seen one healthy season from him. I mean, the comparison that's always made when he catches the ball and runs violently is Deebo Samuel. That didn't age too well. Like, if we're talking about just age, it's a very physical style, and it's someone who gets hurt. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves here. I'm not trying to you got at least a half decade of.
Well, all he needs is 17 games of being healthy, and Nick Caserio will make him, Jamar Chase paid.
Yeah, but as far as aging well, I don't know how well it ages.
I just feel like games that aren't predicated on speed age better.
Yeah, and I guess he's not his speed is underrated, but yeah, I guess it's not predicated on it. but physicality is definitely a big part of what he does. So
yeah, sure. I didn't factor that in.
we're getting way ahead of ourselves.
I would hope that he's going to stop taking some of these hits he takes.
Yeah, I would hope so too. Primetime V, although some people just want that smoke. Primetime V says, do we know what a fully season looks like for Nico? 1,500 plus yards. I mean, it's not out of the question at all.
Yeah. I mean, a fully healthy Nico Collins, I mean, to think about where we were 2 years ago with Nico Collins to where we are now, like 2 years ago, there were still injury concerns, and why wouldn't there be? But to where we are now, basically, where if he stays on the field, he's awesome, and he can be, a guy that climbs through the record books of this organization's history really fast. When healthy, he's awesome. There's not very many questions about Nico.
Yeah, and I think the ideal situation when you have star players is that, I mean, just in the business that it is, Kamari Lassiter becomes a quality corner to the point where you could feel comfortable with him being your cornerback one, and then once his deal moves on, once his deal comes up, you can kind of just churn the roster. That's the reality of it. You can't keep all the players. It sucks. Ask the Chiefs, ask the Bills. Lions are kind of going through it now. Like once you kind of build your roster, Rams have been going through it for a while. Once you build your roster and these guys get good, you got to kind of figure it out. So when you are drafting these young wide receivers, then you just kind of hope that I don't want to say force them out, but they make it easier to make these tough decisions. They make the tough decisions easier.
Well, and another thing as we look kind of down the road, what can you do on defense if, and this is the if scenario, this is the timeline we go down. If Will Anderson turns into one of the best defensive players in football, like what sacrifice can you make here and there on the defense because he is as good as he maybe can be? Like that's the other question too. It's like, because I think about a lot of times elite pass rushers, you can get away with not as good cornerbacks because they do their job so well.
On the chat, Quincy says, why does it seem like people nationally are higher on Nico than locally? Is it just an injury thing? I think it might be your algorithm. I don't feel that. So it might just be your algorithm. I don't know that that's true. It might just be what you're scrolling through.
I mean, Nico's in most people's top 10 right now, but he doesn't get anywhere near the love that a Chase or a Jefferson or anything like that.
And he shouldn't. I mean, let's be real. He's not them at the moment. I mean, if a fully healthy season, we'll see what that looks like. I think it's the one example of like a really, really market appropriate deal, the Nico deal.
Yeah, he's one of the only wide receivers that's on like a good deal for both teams situation. Everybody else is just grossly compensated by their level of production.
Yeah, but I think
Jamar Chase might be worth every penny. Like, it's like I could point to a player here and there and say they're too expensive. Like Jamar Chase might actually be worth every single penny.
Yeah, the wide receiver discussion is always interesting because they get paid, and then that's also kind of like corner, kind of the missing piece type of thing, where a team that kind of feels like they're on the brink or can be aggressive, they go get the wide receiver and they pay big for it, and that's just kind of the way that it goes down when it comes to the wide receiver. Patrick asks, "How was Five Guys?" It was all right. Wasn't bad. It was okay.
We had the burgers are such a strange item to go out and eat because fast food, I mean, that's what I associate with burgers. So it's tough to go to like a burger restaurant unless you know like it's going to be awesome, or they give you something you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, that's the question that he asked. But yeah, I would say Nico's right there in the top 5-10 of the wide receivers. I honestly think, from my point of view, he's really the only Texan worth taking in fantasy at this point. Unless you want to take a really late flyer on Christian Kirk, I don't really feel comfortable with where we're talking about the ADP having too many people from the Texans on my fantasy team this year.
I would still draft Mixon just because I feel like they're going to hand him the ball a ton. And maybe Chubb is here so that if they do get the big lead and they're unleashing the defense the way they've wanted to unleash the defense, that they're, sharing some of those grinded out moments. But I do feel like they're going to run the football a crap ton.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, how does he hold up is the question. He's turning 29. We talk about Stingley's birthday today. Mixon turns 29 in 4 days, I think. So how does Joe Mixon hold up, and how does he run the rock? So it's a tough ask. I would like to. I almost feel like his value could go up with less usage, to where he's fresh and ready to go at the goal line. I would love to see, and maybe this is too much to ask, and I actually, of all the things that we're talking about with Nick Caley, I would love to see Joe Mixon used in the pass game. And that was so embarrassing, Bobby's answer last year when I asked him about it, and he said, well, we try to keep him fresh so we don't use him in the pass game. If they could use Mixon in the pass game, then I think that would be very valuable, because I think he's very capable of it. I think it's an underrated aspect of his game that they did not even touch last year.
Least amount of targets from a fully healthy Joe Mixon year since his rookie year last year.
And he's been with some good receiving cores too, which tells you a lot.
Yeah. Like Joe was basically what he has been for the past, half decade in the NFL. He averaged over 4 yards a carry, got over 1,000 yards. He was a little dinged up. He played better in his 14 games than some of the seasons where he's played less than 17 games before. So I don't see anybody taking carries away from him, and I know they want to run the football. So I just feel like there's some usefulness.
They want to run the football? How do you know?
DeMeco Ryans doesn't ever stop talking about running the football.
But it's Nick Caley's offense. How do you know that that's what he wants to do?
Because if DeMeco wants to run the football, they're going to run the football.
So you think DeMeco's a meddler?
What the perfect day for a offensive, or a perfect day for a defensive coordinator is get a lead, run the football, unleash your pass rush. That's a perfect day at the office.
Yeah, that I just don't know that it should be DeMeco's call. I think it should be Caley's call.
The head coach doesn't decide how they operate? I
think it should be the OC. I think DeMeco should keep his eyes on his own paper with defense. We already hired your buddy for 2 years, and that didn't go well. There's a reason that this guy's here. I don't want DeMeco telling him what he should and shouldn't do. And I don't know what Nick Caley wants to do. Might change week to week. They all say week to week. Some are better at executing it than others. But I just don't want I don't want DeMeco with his defensive mindset controlling what the new OC does.
I don't know. Controlling's not the way I would phrase it. I would just say, if the head coach says run it here, you run it.
Hopefully that's not the case. Yeah. Rich Boy Jay asks, who's better right now on the Super, Will or Daniil?
I say Will.
I say Will too. I think Will's a more complete player.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's going to be even better this year. So I would say Will.
I say Will as well.
Tay Rose, I know you did a video on this. He says, Cody, I'm incredibly interested in seeing Josh Simmons this year.
Josh Simmons, he'll be ready for training camp. And that was, if you need to jog your memory, Josh Simmons, the Ohio State tackle, the Chiefs drafted him at the end of the first round, was the number one player I didn't want the Texans to draft. I'd have been sick to my stomach if they drafted him. And he's going to be ready for training camp. And I saw that and did a video on it. And I know some people reached out to me like, hey, he's going to be ready. I thought you said he was banged. Again, we knew he was going to play football again. It's not like he was coming back from some career-ending injury. It's what level of player is he when he gets back? And he's missed a bunch of off-season stuff to this point too. Like, Simmons could very easily make me eat my words. And
that happens. It's not the end of the world. It's better to have an opinion than just grift around. And
I'm going to bet on the history of players at that position failing to bounce back versus Josh Simmons.
Yeah, but that one will sting if he's good. Like, if he's blocking for Patrick Mahomes at the highest level, at the highest stake, there will be That one will hurt the Texans for a long time.
If week 14 at Arrowhead, he's over there slowing down Will Anderson, slowing down Danielle Hunter, that one's going to sting, certainly.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, did they think that they could get Simmons later? I don't know. They obviously tried to trade up aggressively for Ursery, and that didn't really go down. But this is one that you can directly measure and say, damn, that one sucks.
I feel like there's two big names and then a bunch of smaller names that you will directly compare Ariante Ursery to at the tackle position. And Simmons and Josh Connerly Jr. are the two from the first round that the Texans could have simply just drafted at their position. I don't think any draft prognosticators would have been upset at them drafting those players where the Texans were selecting. But Ursery's going to absolutely be compared to those two guys. And then there's a couple of guys that went after him, Anthony Belton and Ozzie Trapillo, that'll be compared to him as well.
In the alternate universe, it would be fun if we could kind of see, like, if all those guys were on the board when they selected Higgins, if that's still the direction they go. We'll never know.
Oh, like if Simmons and Connolly were there in the top part of the second round?
Yeah, and Higgins.
Yeah.
Like in an alternate world, or even when they took Ursery, like what that looked like. Was that just kind of, we got to get this guy? But we'll never see that. We do know that they wanted to trade the pick that ended up being Knoll and the pick that ended up being trading up for Woody Marks for Ursery, which fortunately the Patriots did not do that. But it would be interesting to know, just like behind the scenes, what they would have done if all those guys had been on the board.
And it's worth noting, it would be it's not impossible. It'd be very hard to see how they would get like Simmons and still end up with Jaden Higgins. So that helps the Ursery conversation a little bit, because it's not just Ursery, because I don't really see a path to ending up with Jaden Higgins if you do make your selection at 25.
I also don't, that for some reason, Kansas City doesn't give me the Ravens feels. Like if the Ravens took Simmons, I would be like, damn, that sucks. Like I for some reason, whenever the Ravens take someone, I'm like, well, that one hurts.
Like when the Ravens took Roger Rosengarten last year after Blake Fisher, and he started at right tackle and was awesome for them all year.
Yeah, that one hurt. And you kind of called that, like, because that they started the run. I mean, there's the two-piece combo, the previously mentioned, and kind of how we started this whole thing and bringing it back full circle. Like, as good of a pick as it was, Nick Caserio's first round pick was Stingley, and you're good with it. You trade back, the Ravens get Kyle Hamilton.
Yep.
And then you trade back, and you take an offensive lineman, and then the Ravens take Tyler Linderbaum. So the Ravens kind of twice, and this kind of happened in 18, where you took. This was a different regime, but it was Martinez Rankin. You needed a tight end or a tackle, and you took Martinez Rankin. And then the Ravens, a few picks later, they went with the tackle Orlando Brown, ignored the combine, ended up doing a pretty good job with him, getting some good ball from him, and then flipping him for an expensive price to the Chiefs. And they also got Mark Andrews. You got Jordan Akins a little bit later on. So I don't get that same feeling with the Chiefs when they draft someone, but we will see. And it'll be someone that we're looking at for a while, and we'll be seeing a lot. Yeah, he will get showcased on the highest of highest stages, blocking for Patrick Mahomes.
It's the Chiefs have done an excellent job putting their team together. Obviously, like I'm not breaking any news to you. It's pretty intriguing how many top draft picks they've drafted, and those guys have just been kind of, and then really it's the guys like later in drafts that have filled out nicely in the depth portion. Cause like Clyde Edwards-Helaire,
it's kind of New England-y. It's kind of New England Patriot-y. And the quarterback's always the equalizer, but it does feel like New England Patriot-y.
Yeah. I mean, going all the way back to, let's go to the very next year after Mahomes. Breeland Speaks. Like that was their first selection. Their first selection in 2019 was Mecole Hardman. Was fine a couple of times, but in 2020, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, awful. Nick Bolton was a nice player for them. Trent McDuffie and Karlaftis were really solid players. But right after they drafted those guys, remember when Sky Moore was like hey, they got Mahomes, another weapon.
Yeah.
2023, they drafted a defensive end that I'm not sure is still on the team. I think he is, but the kid out of Kansas State.
Yeah.
It's, not very good.
QB's the equalizer.
Yeah, you could survive some top misses if your GM's good at grabbing some late round guys that fill out the depth and make the 2 deep a little bit easier to see, and then your quarterback's awesome.
Appreciate everyone for rolling through. I am getting ready to go to Flagstaff. I am trying to avoid the Junes, and I'm going to enjoy Lil Vacay out there in Flagstaff. 80 during the day, 40 at night. I am told it'll be fun. Nice family vacation. We're rolling deep. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Cody will hold it down. Subscribe, like, right along. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.